this week on Forward.
I think we can do better. I think we can create an independent caucus. That's passionate for me. Deb Fischer, my opponent, called us a political science experiment. That's exactly what this is. And guess what else is? The Constitution of the United States, the Declaration of Independence. We're all just one big political science experiment. And I think the system at this point in time really needs to be challenged.
It is my pleasure to welcome to the podcast U.S. Navy veteran, mechanic, labor leader, and most importantly, independent candidate for senator from the great state of Nebraska, Dan Osborn. Welcome to the podcast, Dan.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
It is so great to have you. Every 2 years now, there is an independent who raises their hand and says, you know what, I'm going to run for senator in a place where people do not think it's possible for there to be genuine competition. Most people listening to this, if they haven't kept track of you and your campaign, are like, wait a minute, there's a competitive race in the state of Nebraska, but a poll just came out that said you are tied with the incumbent, Deb Fischer, who seems, in my opinion, very, very vulnerable and quite unpopular. So what got you to run for Senate as an independent?
Well, first I want to preface that with I love the fact that the state of Nebraska and the name is getting uttered out of a lot of mouths these days. So I love when anybody says the name Nebraska. It's exciting to me because there's so many great people here, and I've been able to fall in love with my state since I started this in a way that I never thought was possible. And the people here are absolutely amazing. So I just wanted to preface it with that. But I joined the Navy right out of high school. My grandfather was in the Navy. My mom and dad, they both met while they were in the Navy. My uncles were all in the Navy. And then my brother, he joined the Marine Corps. So we don't talk to him much anymore. I'm kidding. We do. But I did 2 Western Pacific tours aboard the USS Constellation. And I think traveling is the great educator. At an early age, I was exposed to the world twice over. So super important part of my past. And so I got out of the Navy. I came back to Omaha, joined the Nebraska Army National Guard, where I continued my service. Right, I've always felt compelled to service. Had my first daughter, Georgia. And so when she was born, she's now a classically trained professional dancer in Hollywood. So when she was born, I knew I had to go get some gainful employment. So I got a job working at Kellogg's. And one of my first days as an industrial mechanic, and one of my first days on the job, an old Polish guy by the name of Ron Jabalski came up to me and he said, "Hey, Dan, have you joined the union yet?" I said, "No, sir, I have not." And it's noteworthy to say he looked just like Tom Selleck from Magnum PI. The mustache, the hair, everything. But I said, "No, I have not." And he's like, "Well, you might want to think about joining the union." I'm like, "Well, shoot, Tom Selleck's telling me to join the union. I'm going to go do that." So I did. I kept my head down. I paid my dues. I worked hard for a lot of years. I don't know if anybody knows a lot about Kellogg's, but W.K. Kellogg, the founder, was all about his people. The people being the number one resource for his company. The old guys always took care of the union business. And so we started to lose on some contracts because Kellogg's became more beholden to their stockholders, and the old guys started to retire. So I decided to run for my executive board. I got elected as vice president. About 3 months later, the president stepped down because it was a complete changing of the guard. Because you get yelled at a lot in that position, right, by both your members and management alike. But I knew the role was important, so I assumed it. And I did that for about a year. And this is really where my origin story begins, is with COVID. COVID hit while I was president. And during that time, there's 4 North American plants all under the umbrella of the master contract. We were all working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day as essential workers. About 50% of our workforce was forced quarantine during that time as well. And we kept all 4 of those plants running at 100% capacity. Kellogg's made record profits that year. They went from $19 billion to $21 billion. The CEO gave himself a $2 million raise. The board enriched themselves. The stockholders enriched themselves. And our contract expired that year. So I figured as president, this is a no-brainer. We're going to get a little sliver of the pie. But instead, they sat across the negotiating table from us and they said, we're going to take your health insurance. We're going to take your cost of living wage adjustment, which was our only form of wage increases at that time. And we're going to implement a 2-tier wage system with no path for the lower tier employee to go to the upper tier. So for me as president, that was my oh crap moment, right? There hadn't been a strike in Nebraska since 1972. So I kind of had to learn what that meant. I had to create a picketing schedule for 500 of my members. I had to figure out how to picket, why to picket. So when October 5th, midnight rolled around, we could not come to an agreement with the company. And it is still my belief today that they had no intention on coming to an agreement. So we shut down 4 North American plants and we walked off the job to preserve our wages and benefits. One of the hardest things I've ever had to do, take 500 of my friends and their family into the great unknown, not knowing if we're going to have a job at the end of all this. But we all felt we were on the right side of history. And I knew Democrats were going to come out and support because that's traditionally what they do. They support organized labor. But what I saw on the picket line wasn't men or women or black or white or Republican or Democrat. I just saw people that wanted to go to work for a fair wage and fair benefits for the time of their life that they trade. So I set out to make it a nonpartisan issue. I was able to get Republican Congressman Don Bacon out to the picket line. I was able to get the governor of Nebraska, now U.S. Senator, to draft a letter to the CEO, Steve Cahillane, imploring him to get our people back to work. So those are a couple of the things that I was proud of during that time. But I remember we settled on the contract just before Christmas that year. We were on strike for 77 days. And I remember coming back into the plant with my members, just feeling an enormous sense of pride what we were able to accomplish. 500 jobs here in Nebraska, 1,500 around the country. And ultimately, that's why I'm doing this today. I want to continue to be a voice for working people all across my state and the country as well, because less than 2% of our elected officials in both the House and Senate come from working class people. It's a complete misrepresentation of the demographics of people. I certainly want to change that. Andrew, I get frustrated with the corporate agenda. I think Robin Williams, the late comedian, said it best when he said, our politicians should be wearing a NASCAR jacket with patches of their sponsors so we know how they're going to vote. And that is so true. And Senator Fisher, my opponent, is no different. She has a tremendous amount of patches on her jacket, and we can see how she's going to vote every single time. But we're being different. We're not taking corporate money. I don't want to be beholden to a corporation. I'm running as an independent because I don't want to be beholden to a party boss. I want to work for the people of Nebraska the way the founding fathers had set this whole thing up, right? A government for and by the people. It's right now. I feel like it's working against me for who I am as a working class mechanic guy. But that's what's important to me, and that's what we're trying to do.
Hello, YouTube. Please do hit that like and subscribe button. And don't forget, you can ask questions at mailbag@andrewyang.com. See you on the interwebs. This podcast is sponsored by Helix Sleep. This year, what are you going to do that's going to make your life a little better? Maybe, just maybe, you should upgrade your mattress because that's going to help you sleep better. You're going to be able to attack the day with more energy, vitality. It might even keep you healthier. Can a mattress do all that? You might as well Find out for yourself and don't take my word for it. Helix has been awarded the #1 mattress pick by GQ and Wired magazine. It is even recommended by multiple leading chiropractors and doctors of sleep medicine as a go-to solution for improving your sleep. I took the Helix sleep quiz and was matched with a Dawn Firm mattress because I wanted something that felt firm, and I sleep on my back. How do you sleep? Go to Helix Sleep. Take the sleep quiz to find out. This mattress was made for me, but now my kids don't want to sleep on anything else. That tells you all you need to know. Helix is offering 25% off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for our listeners. Go to helixsleep.com/yang. That's helixsleep.com/yang. This is their best offer yet, and it won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts now. Well, I'm sure most people watching this are uplifted by the prospect of having someone like you in the Senate, but they're thinking to themselves, wait a minute, how can a mechanic who's not made of money and is not taking money from corporations, how can he actually win a statewide race? And this is where it gets fascinating, because if you say to folks, it's like, look, turns out that Dan Osborn is neck and neck with the incumbent senator and that this is very, very winnable, they're like, wait a minute, what? You've managed to galvanize a genuine grassroots movement behind you. I mean, you haven't raised as much as like the incumbent Republican, but this thing is neck and neck now, just weeks away from Election Day.
There's 5 polls that have came out. The latest one was an independent pollster, Survey USA, that has us within the margin of error, and 23% of respondents are undecided. So that's what makes this unique, right? Like, people actually have to look up who the candidate is and what they stand for. But of those 23% of undecideds, about 55% of those in the crosstabs are lean Democrat and non-partisan. And the 45% that are conservative, the majority of those are not in favor of former President Trump. So, the undecideds is really promising. And I should note that I already knew the polling data was going to come out the way it came out because I'm traveling the state constantly. I'm in rural Nebraska now, and just did a parade and speaking with everyday people. They're ready for a change. I think people realize if we keep electing the same empty suits, if you will, there's change is not going to occur. So that's something that is heartfelt for me, and that's important for me. But the 4 polls prior to this independent poll, once respondents had a chance to hear positive messaging from both myself and Senator Fisher, a couple paragraphs, we go up 15 to 20 points. So that tells us our path to victory here is just to be able to, there's 1.9 million people in Nebraska. We got to get that message out to them. If we do that effectively, we win this thing. So again, people are ready for a change, and I see it on the ground every single day.
How do people react when you say, hey, I'm running as an independent?
Yeah, so I'm getting into rooms that most people around the country don't get into. I speak to county Democrats. I speak to county GOP monthly meetings. I have been invited to libertarian conventions where I speak. I speak to Dodge County Tea Party, which is in Fremont, Nebraska, 27,000 people there. And, everywhere I go, people leave with Osborn yard signs because they see the value in what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is ultimately getting money out of politics, getting back to the way the framers of the Constitution intended this country to be run, ending Citizens United, things like that. And that's the winning message. And within my message, what people everywhere I go are nodding their heads, and somebody asked me one time, I can't remember where it was at, but they said, what's the most prolific thing that you've learned since doing this campaign? And I was like, oh, that's an interesting question. Nobody's asked me that before. But immediately it just went to the fact that we are not as divided as people as the media wants us to believe. I'm going out and speaking with conservatives, Democrats, libertarians, independents, and we all agree on about probably over 90% of issues. Certainly, we don't always agree on how to resolve the issues, but we all agree that they're issues and they need to be addressed, and we need to be having conversations. So it's given me hope that this campaign is already bringing people together, and nobody's fighting in my town halls. We're just actually trying to figure out how to resolve our issues, and so it's again giving me some hope.
This podcast is sponsored by ExpressVPN. How did you choose which internet service provider to use? The sad thing is, most of us didn't have much of a choice because ISPs operate a lot like monopolies in the regions that they serve. They then use this monopoly position to take advantage of customers, and yes, they even sell your data, your activities to advertisers and big tech companies, and you don't see a dime. That's why I protect my internet surfing and devices with ExpressVPN. When you use ExpressVPN, it's like a magic portal to a perfectly safe and anonymous internet. And don't take my word for it. This is the #1 VPN service according to CNET. It's used by major companies all over the world. So stop handing over your personal data to ISPs and other tech companies who then mine your activity and sell off your information. Protect yourself with a VPN I trust to keep my privacy online. Visit expressvpn.com/yang. That's expressvpn.com/yang to get 3 extra months free. Go to expressvpn.com/yang right now to learn more. You know what you must get asked all the time, Dan? Okay, let's say you win. Who are you going to caucus with when you get to DC?
Well, I think if you've watched up to this point, you can figure out that who I am. I want to challenge the system, Andrew. I think we can do better. I think we can create an independent caucus, and that's passionate for me. Deb Fisher, my opponent, called us a political science experiment. And we turned in 12,000 signatures in all 93 counties. And I had a press release during that time. And I told the press, I'm like, look, Deb Fisher, she threw a jab at me. She tried to say we're a political science experiment. But yes, that's exactly what this is. And guess what else is? The Constitution of the United States, the Declaration of Independence. I think we all know what that is. We're all just one big political science experiment. And I think the system at this point in time really needs to be challenged. And I think the ramifications, if Nebraska elects an independent mechanic, blue collar guy and beats a 2-term incumbent, could be amazing for the country. People around the country would be like, holy crap, did you see what Nebraska did? So people all around the country, nurses, teachers, carpenters, plumbers, people who slave in front of a computer screen, farmers, they could say, you mean I don't have to be a self-funding billionaire to run for office? This is possible, and we want to show that it is possible.
Dan, I love your campaign so much. I will say I am a numbers guy, and when you talk about the polling and that they get the messaging about you and your opponent, and then you shoot up 15 points, how much money do you think you need to get that message out over these coming days?
Yeah, and I want to preface that with I don't come from money. I've never had a lot of money, but I've always, found happiness in my own life, and I don't think money is the key to happiness. So it's difficult for me to ask people to remove themselves from a little bit of their money. But we've raised $3 million to date. Our average donation is $35, again, without taking corporate super PAC money. We're on pace to get between $5 or $6 million if nothing changes, which makes this race competitive. But I think if we get to the $10 to $15 million range, that's really, I think we just win. Because look, Senator Fisher just last Monday just released her first attack ads, calling me all kinds of things. It's already hurting my family. But we're moving our timetable up for when we were going to get on TV with a rebuttal commercial. So, as everybody knows, it's expensive. It takes money. But Nebraska is fairly cheap, I suppose, in that realm. Compared to Texas or Montana, it's about 10 times less to run ads here. So, I think, I suppose that was a long-winded answer to your question. It's about, I think, $10 to $15 million gets us to the finish line.
Well, I have donated to your campaign, Dan. I urge anyone listening to this who wants to see you start the independent caucus in the U.S. Senate to donate as well. I agree with you. I think that if you get the resource to get the message out, you win. This thing's competitive, and you've made it happen really just on the basis of who you are. If someone puts a side by side up and saying, hey, here's Deb Fischer, your current incumbent senator who you have trouble picking out of a lineup. And here is Dan Osborn, family man, U.S. Navy veteran, mechanic, independent, wants to fix what is broken in Washington and in Nebraska and in the United States. The average Nebraskan is going to be like, I will definitely take a chance on the mechanic. Like all you need is like the side by side.
I would also, say the veteran piece to it. I had a guy, he was, he's voting for Trump. And I was talking to him, and he goes, I'm going to vote for you, too. And I said, well, why is that? What issue is it? He's like, it's not an issue. He says, you're a veteran of the United States, which means you were willing to sign on the dotted line and put your life in potential jeopardy for the country that you love. And, that's resonated with me. And, that is why I signed on the dotted line, because I do love this country and I love the people in it. And I want to make it better.
If you're going to have a NASCAR jacket on, Dan, it's just going to have pictures of Americans, pictures of Nebraskans. Wouldn't that be a freaking sight for sore eyes? If someone does want to donate to your campaign and help, how can they best find you and do so?
Yeah, I would push them to osbornforsenate.com. That's Osborn with no E. Unfortunately, I am not related to the greatest football coach in college history at Nebraska. So that's OSBORN for Senate.com.
Hey all, if you know me, you know I'm not that handy in the kitchen, and I have become a huge believer and booster of Factor. Factor's delicious, ready-to-eat meals make eating a joy. It's so fast. You just pop that thing 2 minutes later, and you are eating a restaurant-quality, healthy meal, making you feel excellent about yourself. My favorite is the turkey chili with zucchini, and there is so much more to choose from. You never get tired of it. It fits any budget. It's fast, healthy. It is going to be the new Factor in your life. Yes, I'm a fan. Head to factormeals.com/yang50 and use code yang50 to get 50% off your first box and 2 free wellness shots per box while subscription is active. That's code yang50 at factormeals.com/yang50 to get 50% off your first box. Get Factor today. It's going to change the way you eat. Man, I love your campaign. I think you have a real chance at creating a political earthquake. And let's get behind you to help make it happen. We're going to be with you every step of the way. Osborn for Senate, everyone. Tell your friends in Nebraska. Let's get the votes out. Let's get the credit cards out. And let's get Dan in so that if you can imagine in January, like Dan Osborn, being interviewed, being like, and shocking news out of Nebraska, an independent senator, and it's this guy. And then people will be like, wait a minute, he seems like a pretty normal American military veteran, mechanic. Like, that's incredible. It is incredible. And it's very, very much going to be a signal that there's still hope in America and American politics.
And I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to touch on the fact that there's 2 ballot initiatives in my state. Well, actually 3. One is legalizing cannabis for medical purposes. There are two different pro-life, pro-choice initiatives on the ballot. But anyway, those three initiatives are they're going to drive turnout this year in November, and every single one of those issues, those people are turning out are going to be Osborn voters because Fisher sits on the wrong side of all those issues.
It's going to go the other direction too, man. You're going to get some people to the poll, and then they're going to see those ballot initiatives and be like, "Oh, while I'm here, let me, like pull the lever for women's access to reproductive health and cannabis for medical purposes, etc." So it's important, but you've got to win at your back. I genuinely think you have a chance to make history, and if we can help, I'm going to be pumped.
Yeah, always good seeing you and good talking to you. You're amazing yourself, Andrew.
Oh, pshaw, Dan. Screw that, man. You're going to be a senator in about 3 months.
That's kind of crazy to think about, right?
Let's go.